It's not what you want that makes you rich, it's what you're willing to do for it, every day, without applause. Dreaming is free, but building isn't. If you want the wealth, you must pay the price, not just in ambition, but in structure. Not just in goals, but in systems. That's the blueprint most never bother to follow. A goal without a plan is a wish, and a plan without action is a waste. What keeps most people broke isn't lack of desire, it's lack of execution. Most people think success comes from a big break, a lucky moment, or one massive decision. But the wealthy know it's the little decisions. How you spend your morning, who you associate with, what you do in your spare time, that build up like compound interest. You don't become successful one day. You build it by inches, every day. Let's start with the smallest of disciplines. Waking up when you said you would, not when the body feels like it, not when it's convenient, but when you said, you set the alarm. That's a promise. Now, when you keep it, the message you send to yourself is, I can be trusted. And oh, what a powerful thing it is to believe that about yourself, that you can be trusted to follow through. When you start stacking these little victories, something magical happens. Doubt gets weaker. It starts to shrink in the shadow of your own consistency. I remember when I was younger, my confidence was shaky. I'd say one thing and do another. I'd make plans I didn't follow through on. And every time I broke a promise to myself, I chipped away at the very foundation of my own belief. But once I started keeping those small promises, reading 10 pages, making the phone call, sticking to my routine, I started to change. It wasn't the world that shifted. It was me. I began to believe that I was the kind of person who follows through. And that changes everything. Now, don't wait for the crowd to cheer you on. Most people are too busy battling their own doubts. You've got to become your own inner coach. Encourage yourself. Speak life into your own mind. Because belief is born in repetition. The more you practice discipline, the more confidence becomes your companion. And it shows up in how you walk, how you speak, how you negotiate, how you invest. You walk into a room differently when you trust yourself. You want wealth? Start with confidence. Because money flows toward those who can lead, who can decide, act, and adjust without shrinking. And you don't get that kind of character from theory. You get it from action. Action builds identity. And identity is what guides every financial decision you make. When you know who you are, you don't spend foolishly. You don't chase status. You build value because you know your worth. So make your bed, read your pages, show up on time, say what you mean, and mean what you say. That's not just discipline, it's wealth training. You're conditioning your mind to believe that you are capable. And when that belief becomes strong, the world starts to respond differently. Because confidence isn't just seen, it's felt. And people invest in those who believe in themselves. Confidence isn't magic, it's management of thought, of time, of decision. Keep the promise. Earn the belief. Let discipline make you rich. One of the greatest lessons I ever learned was this: what you don't do can be more powerful than what you do. You see, success isn't just the result of the actions you take, it's equally shaped by the distractions you avoid, the temptations you turn down, and the time wasters you say no to. And if you study the habits of the wealthy, if you truly watch how they move through life, you'll notice something consistent. They say no far more often than they say yes. Now that might sound a little harsh at first, especially in a world that praises the hustle, the grind, and being everywhere at once. But the wealthy understand something most don't. Energy, focus, and time are limited resources. And just like with money, when you waste them, you pay a price. But when you guard them, they multiply. The truth is, poor, people mentally poor, emotionally poor, financially poor, often say yes too quickly, yes to everything, yes to things that cost them time, yes to things that cost them money, yes to things that chip away at their discipline and their dreams. And then they wonder why nothing changes. The wealthy, on the other hand, they understand that every yes is a no to something else. So they protect their calendar, their mind, their energy like a fortress. They say no to shallow invitations, no to scrolling through endless entertainment, no to unnecessary purchases just to keep up with the neighbors, no to anything that doesn't align with their mission. Because saying yes to everything is a sure way to end up nowhere. I remember being invited to every sort of meeting, every kind of gathering. And in the beginning, I went to all of them. Why not? It felt good to be included, but I was busy and broke. Until one day I realized that my biggest breakthroughs came when I was alone, focused, reading, writing, planning, executing. The parties didn't move me forward. The pointless meetings didn't build my business. And once I began filtering my time through the lens of purpose, things changed. I got more done in 1 hour of intentional work than I used to in an entire day of distraction. It takes maturity to say no without guilt. It takes vision to say no when everyone else is saying yes. And it takes clarity to know what you're building so you don't get pulled into what others are wasting. The wealthy don't avoid fun, but they choose purpose over pleasure. They don't reject people, but they prioritize progress over popularity. That's not selfishness, that's stewardship. You can't build a future if you're always escaping the present. You can't accumulate wealth if every paycheck leaks through impulse. And you can't create something meaningful if your time is being traded for meaningless noise. The discipline to say no is a millionaire habitone of the most important ones. So the next time something calls for your attention, your money, or your energy, stop and ask yourself, does this help build the life I'm after, or does it distract me from it? Because wealth isn't just created by what you do, it's protected by what you're willing to turn down. Let me tell you something that changed my life. Your day is the seed and your morning is the soil you planted in. If the soil is poor, full of weeds and neglect, don't be surprised if the rest of the day produces nothing but stress and regret. But if the soil is rich, intentional, cultivated with care, your day grows strong, your energy expands, and your life begins to reflect the order you established before the world even woke up. That's the power of a strong morning routine. It's not just a nice idea, it's a financial strategy. It's a personal development plan. It's a life changer. You see, most people wake up late. They're already behind. They hit the snooze button, not just on their alarm clock, but on their life. They let the world drag them out of bed instead of getting up with purpose. So they begin their day in reaction responding to notifications, emails, bad news, traffic. They're scattered before they even sip their first cup of coffee. That's not wealth-building behavior, that's survival. And if you live like that long enough, you become reactive in everything, your money, your health, your relationships. But wealthy people, they set the tone before the world has a chance to set it for them. When you rise early before the demands of the day begin to shout, you have space to think, and thinking is where wealth begins. I made it a habit to wake up before the noise. I'd sit down with a book, something filled with wisdom philosophy, finance, personal growth. I'd feed my mind before I fed my body. And I kept a journal nearby where I could write down thoughts, plans, reflections. That small practice helped me start with intention instead of interruption. Then I'd review my goals, not monthly, not once a year when motivation hits daily, because repetition builds belief, and belief guides action. I'd remind myself why I was working, what I was building, who I was becoming. I wasn't just chasing income, I was chasing character. So I trained it every morning, the same way an athlete trains muscles. And just like you exercise the body to gain strength, you must exercise your mind to gain clarity. 10 minutes of movement, stretching, a walk, a quiet moment of breathing, whatever it takes to activate you. That's how you win the day before it even begins. It's not about perfection. Some mornings are smoother than others, but the consistency is what creates momentum. And momentum, my friend, is worth more than motivation, because motivation fades. But routine will carry you through the days when you don't feel like showing up. If you want wealth, you can't build it on chaos. You build it on discipline, and the first discipline of the day starts with you. So tomorrow morning, rise with purpose. Read something valuable. Move your body. Reflect on your vision. Start before the world pulls you in. And soon the world will begin to respond to the energy you created, not the other way around. That's the power of the morning. That's how the rich live and how the wealthy begin. I'll tell you one habit that quietly builds fortune over time. Journaling. Not just any journaling, but reflective, intentional, financial journaling. Most people never think to track their behavior with money. They spend, they earn, they hope, they guess, but they don't measure. And here's a rule I learned early. What you don't measure, you can't improve. But the moment you begin to observe yourself, not with guilt, but with honesty, something magical happens. You begin to grow. You begin to steer your ship instead of drifting. You take control, and that's when progress really starts. Now, I'm not talking about a complicated accounting system or a spreadsheet you dread opening. I'm talking about sitting down once a week with a notebook. Yes, just a notebook, and writing 3 simple things. What did I earn this week? What did I learn this week? And where can I improve? Let's start with earnings. Most people see income as a fixed thing. Here's what I get from my job, they say. But the wealthy think differently. They see income as fluid, something they can influence with effort, with ideas, with value. So by writing it down weekly, you start to see patterns. Did your side hustle produce more this week? Did a commission come in? Did you leave money on the table by delaying a decision? Just writing that number weekly makes you more conscious. And that consciousness creates change. Now to the second part, what did you learn? You see, money isn't just about numbers. It's about wisdom. And the wealthy are students of money. So ask yourself each week, what did I learn about business? About discipline? About myself? Maybe you learned how a new tax rule works. Maybe you realized a certain product sells better on Wednesdays. Maybe you caught yourself making an emotional purchase and paused. Capture the lesson. Don't let it float away. That's how you build wealth intelligence, by reflecting, not just reacting. Then comes the final and most powerful question. Where can I improve? This takes humility, but it's where transformation begins. Maybe you realize you overspend on dining out. Maybe you skipped your reading habit. Maybe you let fear stop you from making a call that could have led to opportunity. When you write that down, you stop the cycle. You don't just hope to do better, you plan to. And with that plan comes accountability. And accountability, my friend, is the partner of progress. I did this every Sunday night. Just me, a cup of coffee, and a notebook. No fanfare, no audience. But over the years, those pages became a mirror. They showed me how I thought, how I acted, and most importantly, how I changed. I wasn't always proud of what I wrote, but I was always better because of it. Wealth isn't built in big leaps, it's built in quiet moments like these. Moments when you decide to pay attention, to course correct, to grow. So get yourself a journal. Make it your financial companion. Write what you earned, what you learned, and where you can improve. Do it every week, and watch your awareness turn into action, and your action turn into abundance. Let me tell you, wealth doesn't show up just because you wish for it. It comes to those who think beyond Friday night. If you want to live rich, you got to think long. Long-term thinking is the trait that separates those who merely survive from those who eventually thrive. The rich don't just ask, what do I want now? They ask, what will this decision look like 5 years from now? And that simple question becomes a compass. It directs their steps, clarifies their choices, and helps them make the kind of sacrifices most people refuse to make. The reason most people stay broke isn't because they're not smart, it's because they trade too much of the future for a taste of now. They want the shiny object today, but it comes at the cost of tomorrow's opportunity. They finance the car to impress people they barely know, but ignore the fact that the monthly payment is stealing their chance to invest in something that could grow. I've seen it over and over. People working hard, but always staying behind. Why? Because they think short, and life rewards those who think long. I remember when I had a chance to spend a few $1,000s on something I really wanted. It was a gadget, the latest thing back then, and I almost convinced myself I deserved it. But then I paused and asked the question, will this help me 5 years from now? The answer was no. So I took that money and invested it in a seminar instead. That seminar didn't give me pleasure, it gave me perspective. It gave me tools. And the return on that investment didn't show up that weekend. It showed up over years, in the way I thought, in the way I acted, in the way I earned. You see, the wealthy understand a principle. Long-term reward is built through short-term discipline. They don't get excited about impressing, they get excited about progressing. They don't just spend their money, they plant it. They don't just enjoy their time, they invest it. And the result? Their future starts working for them, while others keep working for their past. Thinking long-term means you say no to things now so you can say yes to bigger things later. It means reading the book when you could watch the show. It means investing when you could be spending. It means skipping the trend to build a foundation. And here's what's beautiful. It gets easier. The more you choose the future, the more the present begins to serve you. That's when momentum takes over and you feel like wealth is chasing you instead of you chasing it. So next time you're about to buy, to act, to react, pause, ask, will this help me 5 years from now? That question, asked often enough, will change your direction. And direction, not intention, determines destination. Let me tell you, one of the most underestimated skills on the path to wealth is the ability to stay financially motivated, not just in the good months, but in the slow ones too. See, excitement is easy when everything is moving up. The challenge is staying excited when the process gets routine. But here's a simple truth. Motivation doesn't come from fantasy. It comes from progress. It's not the mansion on your vision board that keeps you going, it's the extra $200 saved this month that reminds you it's possible. Now, let me share with you something that changed my entire relationship with money. I started tracking my net worth monthly, not my income, because income can lie. You can earn a lot and still spend more. I mean your net worth. That's your assets, your cash, savings, investments, property minus your liabilities, your debts, loans, credit cards. That's the number that tells the truth. That's the number that tells you if you're really getting ahead or just looking like you are. When I first started, it was discouraging. I didn't like what I saw, but that discomfort turned into fuel. I said, this number will not stay this way, so I made it a monthly habit. First day of the month, like clockwork, I'd sit down with a simple sheet list, everything I owned and everything I owed, and over time I started seeing it rise, not by a fortune, but by enough. $100 million or this month, $350 the next, then $1,000. That progression didn't just make me feel good, it made me hungry. And hunger is the best kind of motivation there is. I also did something else. I started visualizing. Now, I don't mean wishful daydreaming. I mean intentional mental rehearsal. Each night, I'd close my eyes and see the future I was building. I'd picture what it would feel like to live debt-free, to walk into a room confident in my finances, to have the freedom to say yes or no without money dictating my decision. And that visualization kept the purpose alive, especially when the work felt repetitive. You see, money isn't just about dollars, it's about direction. And if you're not checking the compass, you'll wander. So track your progress. Celebrate every win, no matter how small. Pay off a credit card, celebrate it. Reach a savings milestone, mark it down. Got to raise and invested part of it? That's a victory. Don't just move forward, notice that you're moving forward. Because the moment you stop noticing your growth, you'll start doubting it. And doubt is the enemy of motivation. Some people wait to feel motivated before they act. But the wealthy, they act and the motivation follows. Why? Because action creates evidence, and evidence becomes belief. When you see your net worth go oop heaven slightly, you believe wealth is possible. And when you believe, you work. And when you work, you grow. It's a beautiful cycle. So if you want to stay motivated, don't wait for a miracle. Measure your progress. Watch it rise. Feed your mind with vision and your habits with truth. Then motivation won't be a mystery, it'll be a byproduct of your commitment. Let me tell you something most people miss. You don't have to ask for a mentor to have a mentor. In fact, some of the greatest mentorship I ever received came from people I never met. That's the beauty of learning in this age. The books, the speeches, the interviews they carry, the mindset, the strategies, and the philosophy of the wealthy and wise. And when you study their work like a student of life, and then implement what you learn, you begin walking in the footsteps of giants without ever knocking on their door. Most people say, I wish I had a mentor. But what they're really looking for is someone to motivate them. That's not mentorship, that's hand-holding. Real mentors don't just inspire you, they challenge you. They offer wisdom wrapped in responsibility. And they don't give that to just anyone. They watch, they notice. And here's what they're looking for. Do you act on insight, or do you just collect it? If you want to stand out to a mentor, don't flat or execute. I'll tell you how I did it. When I first started studying success, I didn't know anybody who was rich. So I read every book I could. I listened to audio tapes over and over again until the words became part of me. I didn't ask the authors for coffee. I applied their principles. I didn't send them emails. I sent myself reminders to take action. And the results? Well, the results became my letter of introduction. Because the moment you start winning, even in small ways, the right people start to notice. That's when mentors find you. One of the biggest shifts came when I started treating mentorship like a discipline, not a convenience. I didn't wait for a mentor to show up. I built a system around their wisdom. I'd take a book from someone I admired, highlight it, summarize it, then write down how I'd apply one key idea that week. Then I'd actually do it, just one idea at a time. And slowly my life started to change. I started seeing returns not just in dollars, but in confidence, clarity, and direction. That's how you earn mentorship without asking. You respect their time by honoring their teachings. You become a living testimonial of their work. And that's rare. Let me tell you, most people just consume. They watch, they read, they nod their head sand, then do nothing. But the rare few, they move, they implement. And that movement turns knowledge into momentum. You don't need to DM a millionaire to grow. You don't need to beg someone to mentor you. Instead, find someone whose results you admire. Study their philosophy, take notes, take action. Document your growth. Then one day you might be in a room with them not as a fan, but as a peer. That's the long game. That's the high road. That's how the real mentorship happens. So now the question is, what will you do with what you've heard? Because the purpose of wisdom is not just understanding, it's transformation. Success doesn't respond to knowing it, responds to doing. The wealthy didn't just learn a few principles, they lived them. They didn't wait for a perfect day, they built it one decision at a time. And if they can, so can you. No matter your background, your bank account, or your beginning, you can choose today to think different, act better, and aim higher. Start small, but start now. Pick one new habit. Track one financial number. Read one book. Apply one principle. Begin with one and the rest will follow. You don't need 100 ideas. You need one idea fully lived. And remember, every day you wait, someone else is getting started. Let that push you, not discourage you. So decide now. Decide to break the cycle. Decide to think long term. Decide to build something worth inheriting. The future is not waiting. It's responding, and it responds to those who move. You've heard enough to begin. Now it's time to take action. Because if you do, the life you imagine is closer than you think.